Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I want to bring you guys a review of the Insta360 Go 3S action camera. Now, I want to start this review by saying that up until about 6 months ago when I purchased this camera, I had never owned an action camera. But I wanted to start a brand new YouTube channel and post some stuff on TikTok and Instagram all around theme parks. And so I wanted a camera that I could kind of use for vlogging when I was out and about, but also a camera that I could attach to myself with a chest strap in order to film on ride. If you do want to check out any of that, I'll put some links below, but it's called Mark's Parks. In fact, if you live in the UK and you love old theme parks, I've also been posting some old theme park video on there as well from the 90s. Now, I am filming this entire review, including the audio that you can hear on the Go 3S itself. It's about 30 centimeters away from my face because that angle is quite wide. In fact, the only video in this review you're going to see that isn't going to be shot on the Go 3S is going to be video of the Go 3S. There's also going to be quite a lot to talk about in this review, so I will put chapters below if you want to navigate to the part that you are particularly interested in. But let's get into the review and start with price. Now, depending on which model you go for, there are two different prices. For 64GB of memory, it is around £350, or £370 will get you 128GB of memory. Now, as it doesn't take a memory card, I do recommend making sure you get the higher memory version. It comes in a choice of white or black as well, and you can get little stickers to go with the camera if you want to. If you look through the options on the Insta360 website or on Amazon, both of which I will link below, you'll see there's all sorts of different packages you can get that come with different accessories, and I just went for a base one and then bought some accessories on top. In fact, if you use my link and go to the Insta360 website, you'll get a bonus free gift when you order as well, but it is also worth checking on Amazon because sometimes the prices there are cheaper. So when I ordered, I followed a similar link and got a nice carry case with it, and then I also bought a small carry case off Amazon just for the camera itself, which meant I could just pop it in my pocket when I've been travelling. If you go for the base model, in the box you get the camera itself, you get the action pod that the camera sits in, you get the USB-C cable, a pivot stand, an easy clip and a magnetic pendant, and then you get a lens cover which is already attached to the lens. You can buy extras of these and they're not particularly expensive. At the same time as ordering, I picked up a pack of the wind muffs, which are little stickers that go over the microphone, and you can see that throughout this video. I also purchased the chest strap, which I've been using for going on roller coasters. In addition to that, I also picked up their Quickreader, which I will do a separate review on, but it's a way of easily transferring data off the camera onto a memory card or directly onto something like your phone via Lightning or USB-C. Of course, you can transfer data using Wi-Fi, but it is much quicker to do it this way. And actually, if you plan to use this camera on longer journeys, I do recommend picking up that accessory, which I will link below, but I will do a full review on that soon. The only other accessory I picked up was their selfie stick tripod, which is a tiny little device that does expand with legs if you want to use it as a tripod, but you can also just use it as a selfie stick and it gets pretty long. All in all, it's kind of largely priced the same way as other similar action cameras. It's slightly cheaper than the new Go Ultra, which has just come out, and I do still think it's probably the better choice for most people. And I will kind of not compare it as we go throughout it, but I will make odd references to the Ultra as well. If you're wondering what the Ultra is, in a kind of nutshell, it is a slightly redesigned Go 3S. The camera that comes apart from the body itself is slightly bigger than the Go 3S, and then it's also got extra things like improved night mode and kind of better quality video. However, from some reviews I've seen, the video quality isn't massively different. It's only really when it gets into low light situations that you notice it. So let's get into design, because this is largely the reason I went for this one over other action cameras out there. So the camera itself, as I said, comes in a choice of white or black, and I ended up going for the white one simply because it was in stock. If I'm honest, if I had a choice, I'd have probably rather had the black, but I really like the white one anyway. The camera itself really comes in two parts. You've got the action pod, which has a screen on it and all the buttons, and then you've got the camera that removes from the action pod, but then also goes back in it via magnets in order to charge it, but also if you just want to use it like a traditional action camera. On that action pod itself, the side has power and mode buttons, the top has a record button, and then the other side has a quick release for that camera itself. On the camera itself, you'll find a button which you can use to quickly record if you're just using the camera on its own. You'll find a microphone, which I've covered with the wind muff, as you can see, and then you've got the camera and a lens cap just screws on top of it. Going back to the pod, on that same side as the release button, you'll find a USB-C port for charging it, and then on the back you'll find a touchscreen. That screen can flip up, which is really useful for filming selfies because you'll get an idea of what the view is as you're recording. What I will say, and I'm noticing it a lot as I'm recording this video, is that there is a slight lag between you saying something and recording it and seeing it on the little screen. However, as you can see, having that little screen on top to kind of get an idea of what you're filming is really useful, and it's great that it flips up. And then the big selling point for me is that the camera can be removed from the action pod. That gives you a tiny wearable camera, and especially with the kind of magnetic pendant accessory which goes under your shirt and the camera clips on top, it's a really good way of getting kind of point of view video as you walk around and being pretty inconspicuous. It's also nice and easy to hold and film if you're out doing a run or you want to record some kind of action. The other great thing about the camera is it's magnetic, which means you don't need a tripod to mount it to something, you just need some metal. For example, I recently played a gig in a pub and I just stuck it on the lighting rig so I could film some of the gig. Between that and the tripod stick, actually it's a super versatile camera you can mount nearly everywhere. The main downside is that the camera doesn't have your traditional camera shoe mount anywhere at all. The accessory you get with it, however, for kind of mounting it to things like chest straps and the tripod and the kind of stick-on mount does have one of those on it, so you attach the camera magnetically to that and then you've got the shoe accessory if you want it. Overall, however, it's a nice design and it's really compact, and even with the camera in the action pod, I can just fit it in my pocket if I want to with that little carry case. So let's talk about spec. So firstly, this is a camera that can shoot up to 4K video in 30 frames per second. It also supports a variety of views from ultra wide to mega video. This is designed to keep everything as you saw it without any distortion, and that's what I'm using to shoot this video. You can choose between frame options of 30, 25 or 24. It also has a built-in sensor to detect if it's in vertical mode or horizontal mode. It uses this to record based on that setting, although when you are recording it won't change the mode if you're turning it during recording, you've got to do that beforehand. And then as you'd expect from an action camera, it's got stabilization built in, which helps keep everything nice and smooth. As I said, the little camera itself has a button on the front, and this can be used to trigger recording modes. You can toggle what these do in the settings, but by default, one press will record as normal, and two presses will record freeform video. Freeform video basically records a big square of video that you can adapt into landscape or portrait video later on, and I really like this mode. You can also trigger recording via gestures and then also via your voice. I do find for gestures you've got to be stood a little bit further back, and it's not really something I've used much. And then for Apple users, it has built-in Find My. That means you can add it into your Apple Find My app and it'll tell you things like when battery's getting low, but also if you leave it behind somewhere. And this is a good time to talk about battery life. So Insta360 say the camera on its own has 38 minutes battery life when recording. In reality, I found it's a bit less than this. They also say using the action pod to kind of recharge that, or just having it in the action pod all the time, gives you about 140 minutes of usage. Again, I'd say this is slightly less in reality. And of course the temperature of where you are and things like that do have an impact. And then the camera pod itself is splash proof, which means you can't take the actual camera pod diving with you without buying something like a dive case. The camera itself, however, is IPX8 waterproof. And this is waterproof up to 33 foot, but you must have the lens cover on it. That means I have taken it on some water rides with me with no issues. And actually, if I'm honest, if I am using a chest strap with it, I prefer just using a little camera rather than the whole module anyway. And then for tracking things like sports, it can hook up to your Apple Watch and your GPS and overlay some statistics over the top if you want to. This is pretty cool for runners or cyclists, but again, it's not really something I've used. And then it also supports a lot of other features for shooting things like time-lapse video and slow motion video. And then finally, it does have accompanying iPhone, iPad, Android and Mac apps that you can use to download and edit your video. One thing to note is that to actually get the video with the stabilization on, you will need to export it from one of these apps. And I'll talk more about that later on. The other thing to note is that when you do connect it to your phone or your iPad, it connects via Wi-Fi rather than Bluetooth. That does mean if you need to do any software updates, you'll probably need to do that on your mobile phone unless you've got a cellular iPad. That's because the Wi-Fi is going to be kicked off and you need to use mobile data to download that firmware update. It does, however, have Bluetooth built in. So that's all for spec. Let's talk about setup. So once you get it, you're going to want to unbox it, you're going to want to download the Insta360 app, and then you're going to want to connect both up by following the instructions in the app. That would include setting up an account as well, which you might have already done if you purchased it through the Insta360 website. As part of this, you'll probably have a software update to do as well. You might then want to tweak some settings as well, and there are a lot of settings. So let's go through all of the settings on the Insta360. So you pretty much always start off on the main screen and then just swipe different directions. So if you pull in from the right, you'll find quick edits to the shooting mode when it's in the camera mode. In this, there's auto mode, which I've used most of the time, but then there's also a manual mode if you really want to toggle things like ISO, white balance, exposure, and sharpness. Going back to the main screen, you can also change things like zoom level, which goes up to 2x, video quality, frames per second, toggle the tilt fix, and adjust the field of view as well. You can also see battery levels and the amount of filming time left in the memory at the top. If you pull in from the left-hand side, you'll see the video that you last took, and you can view this as either kind of one at a time and swipe through, or you can view it as a grid. You can multi-select if you want to quickly transfer them, or quickly delete a bulk. You can also star videos if you want to easily find particular ones later on. Then going back to that main screen again, if you pull up from the bottom, you can adjust the quality. You can also adjust duration settings and stabilization. And then finally, pulling down from the top gives you more settings, including rotation lock, screen lock, indicator light brightness, prompt sound volume, screen brightness, pre-recording, the option for interval videos, which is cool for things like driving. There's a kids mode, you can turn on the grid, you can turn on the level indicator, you can turn on voice and gesture controls, you can change quick capture settings, which is kind of when you press the record button on the camera itself. You can set audio settings, which includes 3 modes, so there's wind direction, stereo and direction focus. And then you can also go into settings for more information about the camera, including things like firmware updates. In all honesty, there is a lot of stuff here to play around with. And generally speaking, I think once you've got the settings to what you want, you're very rarely actually going to dive into them. The auto mode is also pretty good, and so I think a lot of the time you'll probably just roll with what it's already set up with. It's also worth going through the different shooting modes this camera offers, and these are rotated through by pressing the Q button on the right hand side. So you've got video mode, you've got freeform video mode, which is that square video, you've got time lapse, time shift, slow motion, which can only shoot in 2.7K video, loop recording, star lapse, interval photo, HDR photo, and photo. So that's all the kind of setup and settings. Let's get into the good stuff and talk about what is this like to use. And as I said, I came at this as someone who had never used an action camera before, but I wanted to vlog some trips. So over the last 6 months, I've took it traveling with me, and I've took it on some roller coasters and water rides in theme parks across Europe. I've done things like walk around theme parks just with magnetic pendant on and the camera, and then I've also worn the chest strap and took it on roller coasters, and I've got some thoughts about this camera. And I want to start off with everything I think is good about it. So firstly, I love how compact the camera is when you take it out of the action pod. I love using the magnetic pendant to kind of walk around with it. I love being able to just hold it in a hand and vlog, and it's just a really nice camera to use, and that button makes it really quick to activate. It also makes it really light when you pop it on a chest strap with one of the accessories. As someone who's not really used to vlogging in public, just standing in a room and talking to a camera, having a camera this small has given me confidence to try and do some of that. I also love that because it's magnetic, you can mount it to pretty much anything as well. The size of the whole action pod with the camera means that you can just pop it in your pocket for the day with a small case. And generally I found that as a whole it's fine for a day of kind of taking short vlogs and on-ride POVs and things, but I do tend to carry a battery pack with me just in case I need to charge it. I do find, however, the camera on its own when recording does underperform on battery life. So I mentioned earlier I'd mounted it to a lighting rig for a gig. It actually only got 26 minutes out of that full charge. This is a lot less than the advertised 38, and it wasn't massively hot. It was kind of an average temperature for the summer, so probably about 22 degrees in the room. The second thing I really like is the video quality and the stabilization quality. Even taken on a wooden roller coaster with a chest strap still gets really smooth results, and wooden roller coasters are known for being rougher than steel coasters. I've also took that little camera on water rides as well, and it's been perfectly fine. Where video quality does suffer is in low light settings. Although in all honesty, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. When it comes to the audio quality, I think it's fine for vlogging and recording if it's facing you, but because the camera is on the front of it, you are going to make sure you're facing it or close to it. Let me show what I mean with a clip from a run the other day. So it's a pretty quiet area. It's a tiny bit windy today, and this is just a microphone off the camera itself. Now, if I flip it around and keep talking, you can hear what audio does. And of course, really, you want to bring it close to your mouth. So it's kind of level with my mouth right now. But if I move it further away, you can kind of see what I mean about the audio of this. One of the other great things is that because the camera can separate from the action pod, you can use the action pod to preview the video even when you're slightly further away from it. That time-lapse mode is also really fun to use. But this is where we get onto the things that I'm not so keen on. So firstly, getting video off of it does require you to use one of the Insta360 apps. And if you look at a video on a memory card, it basically creates, I think, 3 different files for each video. One is the video itself, which you can take off, but it doesn't include the stabilization, and the others I think include kind of various information about the video. That means in order to use them in an external editor or kind of upload them to something, you do need to go into the Insta360 app, connect to the camera, and then export the video onto your phone or your Mac or whatever you're using it on. I do find that over Wi-Fi this does take a bit of time. Personally, that's why I decided to pick up that accessory that transfers video onto a memory card, so I can shoot a lot of stuff, and then when I get home I can plug it into my Mac via USB-C, and then I can transfer it that way. I do find that exporting the video from the Insta360 app on my Mac still takes a little while, but it is much quicker than using it on the phone or iPad. Now, the Insta360 apps can also allow you to edit. However, this isn't something I have used because I'm really used to Final Cut Pro for making videos like this on YouTube. And one of the things I like to do is overlay video on top of me talking and kind of mess around with transitions and things. And you can do transitions in the Insta360 app, but I don't think you can do overlaid video. The second thing I don't like about the Insta360 is that I have found that it does get pretty warm when filming. This applies to both the camera pod and the camera itself. And on really hot days, it will stop charging the camera if the whole thing is too warm. Of course, if you try and do a lot of filming, this is a bit of a pain. And then thirdly, and probably my main criticism of this, is to do with audio. And that's because despite the fact that it's got Bluetooth built in, there are no external microphones you can use with this. And this is slightly bizarre, especially as some of their other cameras do offer external microphone support. That means for decent audio, you need to make sure you're facing the camera like I am right now, which is fine for vlogging, or if you're kind of walking around with it facing the other way, you've got to make sure your mouth is quite close to the side of the camera so it does pick it up. It's also worth noting the new Go Ultra still doesn't offer an external mic, and I just find this really weird for an action camera. The new camera does offer some AI noise reduction, but I just think an external mic that you clip on and it connects via Bluetooth might impact battery life, but it'd be a really good option. And I do think it's something they could create with a firmware update, and I do hope they do, and I have offered that as a suggestion. But like I said at the start of this video, I'm just a regular customer who purchased this camera, so I don't actually have any say with Insta360 at all. So all in all, what's the verdict? So the Insta360 Go 3S is a great travel camera. It's small enough to fit in your pocket, it creates some great looking video, and stabilization works really well. There are a few quirks around battery life and getting video off of it, but these are certainly things you can easily live with. My main criticism is audio if you're not facing a camera, and I would love to see them release an external microphone accessory and update the firmware to work with that in the future. That means if you are using it for audio a lot, you're going to want to think about how you're shooting video, but also maybe think about getting an external recorder or something and then syncing up the audio later on. Whilst the new Ultra does offer things like improved battery life and better video in low light settings, nothing about it makes me want to upgrade, especially when the camera is a bit bigger than the Go 3S, and I love how compact this camera is, and I still think this is probably the better option for most people. If you do want to pick one up, I'll put links below to it on Amazon and also Insta360's website. It's worth checking out prices on both because they do vary, and if you use my Insta360 link, you'll probably get an extra gift when you purchase it as well. So when I purchased mine, that was a case, but they do vary these a bit. Those are affiliate links, so if you use those links, I'll get a very small cut of what you spend at no cost to yourself. That just helps this channel out and helps me keep making videos and reviews for you guys. If you've got any questions about it, do stick them below and I'll answer those for you because I'm going to keep using this camera. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.